Hello, everyone. I believe we are live now. So if you do see this, I'd appreciate something in the comments to let me know. But I'm going to vamp for a little bit here and let you know about the content, and then I'll get into the S4x26 statistics. I created a little slideshow, and one of the things I'm happy to do is take your comments and questions as the event goes on. First of all, I do apologize for those of you that are loyal readers of my content. You'll notice the last couple of weeks it's been pretty quiet. Before S4, I always try to be ready and have a number of things queued up to automatically populate. I didn't do as good a job of that this year, but beginning next week, or actually this week, we'll get back to the normal schedule where I'll put out an article every Tuesday, my Friday news and notes every Friday, or at worst on Saturday, occasionally. The videos for S4 will begin next week. We're going to put out one video on Monday and one video on Thursday, and we'll have the schedule up next week as well, so you can see if there was a particular video you were waiting for, when that's going to come out. People often ask why we don't just drop all 60 or so videos at once. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's like 2 terabytes plus. It's actually closer to 3, I think, of content for multiple cameras. So it does take us a while to process them. So we couldn't put them out all at once, but we could probably get them all out in a month if we wanted to. What I like to do is provide a little more promotion for each one of these sessions, because the speakers work so hard on them that if you dump 60 all at once, almost none of them get any attention. So we try to put out 2 a week, put out a blog post, we'll promote them, we'll pull out some clips from the sessions, and that way hopefully they'll resonate a little bit more with at least some of the audience, because there's some really great work that's done every year that shows up on the stage, S4 stage. So we've got the Tuesday article, Friday news and notes, Monday and Thursday videos from S4. And then the other thing that I get asked a lot about is the podcast, the Unsolicited Response Show. I'm kind of mixed on that. I was tempted to just give it up. You'll notice I haven't done much with it. There's so many podcasts out there now, many of them quite good, but your return on time on a podcast is really not what people think it is. It was one thing when this was the only one out there. So what I've decided to do is do a monthly interview with someone. So there'll be 10 episodes of Unsolicited Response. I might occasionally do a live one like this, but 10 recorded episodes. And my first interview is tomorrow with Rob Lee. So that'll be the March interview. I hope to get Nick Anderson from CISA, since he bailed on me for the fireside chat. Hopefully he'll be willing to do an interview, and I'm going to try to find people that I find really interesting and enjoy talking to and having them on the show. So with that as kind of a background, I see a few people online now. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments as this goes on, but let me get into the numbers a little bit for you. And I'm going to put on my glasses here. We had 11,027 attendees officially at S4. About 35 of the badges were not picked up. So the people who actually attended in person was just under 1,100. And we ended up having to turn away over 100 that we know of, people that were on the waiting list, people who reached out. We were just, the venues could not hold more than that 1,100. So the good news is Tampa is bigger, so we can do a little bit better. Hopefully we won't have to turn anyone away. What I thought was really interesting is, and let me put up a slide here. We track this, and those of you that attended notice this is also reflected in the lanyards. The white lanyards are the first-time attendees. We had about 50% first-time attendees. And you might think that's strange, but it's very consistent. For example, not surprisingly, if you know me, we have tons of metrics on this stuff. In 25, 52% were first time, and 24, 53% were first time. This time it was almost exactly 50%. And then you see the breakdown from there. We're seeing a slight shift from the 2 to 4 years to more 5 to 9 and 10 year attendees, just because we have been going on for a while now. So that's the profile. I really like this mix because the first time attendees bring a lot of energy to the event, I think. They've never experienced S4. It's hard to explain how it's different, but the vibe and the mixture between the old timers, the pros that have been coming year after year after year, and the first time attendees is always great. So that was fairly consistent. Um, let's see, move to the next slide here. This was one that was regrettable and a bit surprising to me. The number of women, both as a raw number and as a percentage, went down. Uh, it's just so frustrating. We spend a lot of money on the women's program. We spend over 50,000 a year. We have for at least the last 5 years, either through social events or scholarships or something like that. And we just can't seem to do a better job of getting more women to come. I think the quality, and this is not a personal quality, but let's say the skill level of the women that attending is really phenomenal now. We're not just seeing a large percentage of newcomers. We're seeing people with, far along in their career, whether it's technical or policy or anything like that. So it's a really amazing group of women that come to S4. But in terms of the numbers, we're just not really making a difference. And we look at this every year, and we'll look at it next year to say, what can we do differently to try to change that? My guess is we're maybe 5% over the actual industry demographics. I would think that's closer to 10% of the industry is women, and we're getting about 13% to 15%, but we're not making progress in the numbers. And quite frankly, we look at every dollar we spend and we say, are we getting a lot of use of this? We could take that 50,000 and build 2 to 3 village water systems. But I'm not ready to give up on the women in ICS program yet. I'm going to put up some questions here just because I want people to continue to ask them. So this is a fun one. Can we do a live debate between Ralph and Rob? I would love it. I don't think the two of them would agree to it. They're not necessarily very friendly in that sense. But if they wanted to do it, I would certainly put it on stage. They certainly have differing points of views. But then again, can it be a worthwhile debate? We wouldn't want it to evolve. But if they both wanted to do it, we would certainly do that. As I mentioned, I will be talking to Rob tomorrow for the Unsolicited Response show. And one of the things we're going to be talking about the Dragos threat report for this year, but we're also going to be talking about this disconnect we have between the number of public incidents and the, I guess what Rob and many people on the threat side say is a much higher increased level of activity by the threat agents and how we solve that problem. So we'll see Dom, I'm sorry. We'll see if we can get them on stage. So that's the numbers on the women. One of the other things that I was worried about was attendees from Europe. And the reason for that is that I had a number of longtime S4 attendees, 10 plus year attendees who came from Europe, who wrote me an email, said, I'm sorry, but we're not coming this year. We can't do anything to support America, given the current politics. And I certainly don't begrudge anyone their point of view and where they spend their time and money. So, I said, that's fine, not a problem. I did want to verify that there was not an issue in the community. So a lot of times I go back, especially if they were friends, which most of them are, I would ask them, have you had any negative experiences in the community related to this? And so far, no one has has said, yes, there was a negative community experience. But, politics is on top of everything. So we just have to deal with that. So I wanted to pull up the European numbers. And surprisingly, even though we did lose a lot of the older, let's say, more frequent attendees of S4, the numbers from Europe were slightly up. Not dramatically, but I was expecting to see a small dip from, 8, 9% down to 6%, but we actually went up over 10%. So we were seeing a lot of new people from Europe coming. Just to give you a little bit more information in terms of countries, 78% were from the US, which is a little less than the 80%. So we had a slightly more international crowd. It came from 32 different countries. US was obviously first, Canada was second, UK third, Israel four, in terms of number of attendees. Then the one surprise, because that's traditionally what we see, the one surprise was Brazil was 5. There were 19 people from Brazil. And that was largely due to Siemens Brazil putting together a large delegation that came up together. But it was great to see. And then Japan was 6. So those are almost always the top countries. Sweden is often in there, but again, a lot of the traditional Swedish contingent didn't make it. Let's see what Megan has to say here. We'll show her a comment. It's an interesting idea that most women might buy a ticket to a women's event to cover the dinner's cost and donate remaining funds to a women's cause, perhaps even a shelter. Yeah, I mean, we're going to look at this. I don't think we have solved the issue. We certainly have made huge progress since, let's say, 2015 when Megan, you were one of the few people there. It's nice to walk around and there's enough women's that it's not a rare sighting at S4 when you see 2 or 3 women talking to each other. That's pretty common, but we're still not there yet, and we're going to keep looking for ways to get that done. Okay, let's go back here to the debrief. So I gave you those numbers. Let me pull this back up. One of the questions we ask is, on a scale 1 to 10, how likely would you recommend S4 to a friend or colleague? This is called a net promoter score. It's actually very common in the industry. I gotta remember to take Megan's comment down. I don't have Liz here to help me, so it's probably not quite as smooth. And really what you have is you have your promoters who are 9s and 10s. You have your detractors who are less than 6, and your 7 and 8s just don't count, which surprises me because I thought an 8 was a good score, but it isn't. But we were thrilled this year. The survey is showing us at a 78.5 NPS score, which is in that world-class exceptional. We've always been above 70 since we started collecting this, but 78.5 is the highest we've had, slightly above the 78 we had when we came back from COVID. Everyone was so excited to come back from COVID. That was a very happy year. And it looks like this last event in Miami was also very popular. Another question we asked is, will you be returning to S4? We got almost, what is that, like 80-some% that said yes, definitely or probably, which is we like to hear. And again, this is very common. These numbers are very common. The funny thing is that we get 50% first-time attendees every year. So it's good to know, but we know that that's actually not going to happen, that it's probably going to be about 50-50, which is fine. Then the other now I'm going to get into um, some of the other events that happened around S4, and if you have questions on the presentations or anything else, let me know. Excuse me. Um, One of the things that was new this year was the POC Pavilion, the Proof of Concept Pavilion. And as you can see, about 75% wanted it back. This surprised me. I thought don't care would be higher, but this would show that that a lot of people actually went up there, because if you didn't go up there, you'd probably fall in the don't care category. But a lot of people went up there, and I really liked it. Um, we want to bring it back. There are a lot of things we could do better. I mean, the obvious one is uh, make it much easier for the attendees to see. That room we were in was very limiting. Fortunately, in Tampa, we have a lot more room, so it should be easier to see these sort of things. But we want to do that. There's a question of, can we get a bigger system? Can we get, Booz Allen did an amazing job. I can't give them enough credit. We didn't pay Booz Allen to do it. Essentially, their visibility at the event was, is I think why they did it. It's kind of like a semi-free sponsor thing, but they spent so much time that it was far from free, and they just did a great job. But can we make it a better live demo experience? Can we have more and better problems? The problem statements, I thought, that we received were very limited. Like, we don't need, for example, 4 vendors showing visibility. I think we'll do it. It was great for a first try. I want it to be bigger and better. I know a lot of things we can do better, but it's kind of a challenge there. But the good news is it went over pretty well, even with all its problems and limitations. So our goal is to bring that back again. We have a question here. Do you track asset owner operator attendance versus vendor consultant? We do. We don't publish those numbers, but I can tell you that the asset owners is at about 30%. And it's traditionally been at that number, regardless of what we try to do. We would love to see it closer to 40%. But we have not been able to do that. You can't force asset owners to come. People have said, well, you can give away free tickets and all that. Well, when you start to do that, you become a sponsor-driven event. And we really don't want to be a sponsor-driven event. Right now, about 60% of our revenue comes from ticket sales and 40% from sponsors. So if all of a sudden we do a lot of things for the sponsors, then I think it would lose a lot of its attitude or vibe that you get at S4. So to answer your question, it's about 30% asset owners. Do buyers also come to S4, or is it just vendors? I don't know that asset owners come to S4 as, quote, buyers. I do know that the sponsors say they close a lot of deals. If the sponsors weren't happy, they wouldn't keep coming back, and we sell out the sponsor packages every year quite early. But again, it's not geared to be a sponsor show. Let me throw one other thing out there. Some people think, oh, we need a lot of asset owners there. And you see my target was about 40%. When you have a show that is focused on this create the future mission, you need early adopters, pioneers, leaders. And quite frankly, a lot of those people are with consultants, are with the vendors, are with the labs and such. Some asset owners can be at that bleeding edge, but quite frankly, if we relied on them to push the industry forward, I'm not sure we would get there nearly as fast. So we don't view having a consultant at S4 as a bad thing. Now, if it's someone who's just there to only sell, which honestly some are, but a lot of the attendees from the vendors, from the consultants, if you talk to them at the event, they are there to push the industry forward as well. So again, I wish we could do a little bit better with the asset owners. Again, 40% instead of 30%, but it's not one of those things where we evaluate a key metric. Can we get, 60, 70% asset owners? That doesn't really matter. The other funny thing is the people who want the asset owners there the most are often the vendors. So it's kind of funny that way. Let's see. What else do we have? I don't know that I even have another slide. Oh, I think I have a slide on S4x26. Let me put that up now. Then I'll take the slide deck down and give you a little more info and ask you can ask any questions or comments, and we'll put those up. Here's the S4x26 dates. It is in Tampa. It's the week of February 8th through the 11th. Fortunately, it's not over Valentine's Day that year. It's at the JW Marriott, Water Street in Tampa. We tried something different in Tampa at 25, where we didn't have the main stage open on Tuesday. And we didn't have something like the cabana sessions. And that did not go over well. Those were probably the two biggest complaints we had about it. So we are going to mimic the schedule of the Miami event. Monday will be the badge pickup and some activities, but then the event starts Tuesday morning. The second day, Wednesday, we'll have what we're going to call the Bay sessions, which will get you more information, but it's very, very similar to the cabana sessions, and so on. So it should be great. And the nice thing about this is that it's a much bigger area we have, both for the social events and, more importantly, for the event itself. So we can do more with Birds of a Feather, POC Pavilion, and a lot of other things. You'll see there the dates for the call for presentations. We'll put out a video for that and when ticket sales open. And those of you who bought tickets later, if you know you're coming, you buy the tickets on the 15th. For those first 36 hours, we hold the ticket number one price. And every year we seem to sell more tickets. I think we were like over 500 again this year after the first 36 hours. Plus, you can get your hotel room before the block sells out if you have a ticket. Okay. I think that's it. So I'm going to take this down. What was my favorite presentation this year? Well, it was the one that I'm going to talk about. It was the impact score. And that's one of the other things we do as a metric. We pick at least one session from S4 and turn it into an S4 project. This year, it's going to be one of them, at least, is going to be the impact score, OT incident impact score. That site is up. We're ready for the next incident. We've got logins now. I was talking to Dan Ricci this morning, looking at how we've updated the site, or he's updated the site. So we have logins, a vetting process, adding new incidents and such. So that's the one that was my favorite, just because I think it's going to have an impact. But we have a lot of work on our end to do on the marketing side of that. I'd be curious, if you're online, what was your favorite? I did hear a lot of people really like that. Will CRA have an impact in the next 3 years? That debate between Sarah and I think it was Sam. I can't remember who Sarah debated against, but it was. I heard a lot of people really enjoyed that. I heard that actually both of the debates went well this year. So we're going to look to see if we should do more of that. The challenge with the debates is always Um, can you find a topic where there's enough disagreement in? Because it's not much fun having a debate if everyone says, "Oh, if 90% are on one side of this and 10% are on the other." So at this point, I think that's pretty much all I had to say on this, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments from anyone who's watching online. Um, I'm just looking through my notes here to see if there's anything else I missed. Oh, there was. Let me talk about one last thing on the survey. We showed those scores, and we're really thrilled that people enjoyed it so much and that they want to come back. But then there was also a question: what can we do to make S4 27 better? And we got a lot of replies on that, which is good because um, we read each and every one of those, and they do drive change every year. Those comments. Now, some of them might surprise you. We get year after year, and we can't really, or we choose not to do. I guess we could do whatever we want, but we choose not to do it. I'll give you kind of I shouldn't say it's silly, but I'll call it a silly one. We got a number of comments against this year saying you need to serve coffee all day long. And oops, did I mess that up? What did I do there? Hold on. Well, I don't know. I'm seeing a second person here, but hopefully you are not. There we go. Okay. Live stuff. A coffee all day long, and nobody drinks more coffee than me, or few do. I shouldn't say nobody. Uh, but we in 2024 we served coffee all day long at the Lowe's, and our coffee bill was $220,000. That's over $200 per person for coffee. And if we were going to continue serving coffee all day long, we'd have to raise ticket prices by $100. And to me, I don't think most of our attendees, if given the choice between living without coffee, except before, during breaks, and at lunch, or spending another $100, I think most of them would rather not have the coffee. Now, I could be wrong on that. It's the same thing with breakfast. Breakfast runs from a cheap breakfast, like a muffin or something like that, is like $40, and a full breakfast is closer to $80. And if you multiply that by 3 days, you start to see that all these ideas that, sure, we'd love to serve all this stuff, has a price. So we have to decide, do we do something at the party, or do we do coffee all day? And not everyone's going to agree with our decision. So some of the comments that you made, you won't see changes, but many you will. But we do take each one seriously. Let me go to a couple of questions here. Are there student discounts for S4? No, there are no student discounts for S4. There's no discounts for S4. S4 is priced based on the ticket number you buy. But this year, if you bought your ticket on the first day, you saved $700 over someone who bought the ticket in December. So that's really what we do for the discounts. I joined late. Any suggestions for vendors in the POC pavilion? Yeah, we have a lot. I think I was kind of hoping that the vendors would have actually shown more interactive. They actually would have gone in and showed things being changed. What we saw more were the results, like fixed screenshots, and that we saw very little interactive. Look, I'm going to add this user, or look, I'm going to look at this event that just popped up, or anything like that. I had hoped to see more of that. I also think we'll probably shorten the presentations from an hour to 45 minutes. I thought it was a little bit long, But overall, I thought the vendors did a great job. Will S4 ever return to Miami? Uh, I don't know. I can tell you that 27 and 28 will be in Tampa. We have those under contract. We do not have 29 under contract. I would not say it's impossible. The problem with Miami is finding a venue of the right size because we've kind of outgrown the lows, and the next biggest one is the convention center, which is 30,000 people. We're not even close to that. And also the price, the rooms at the conference hotels are just so expensive there. I think they were getting close to $600 if we had done 27 there. So I don't think a lot of our users can afford that price. Shout out to Liz and Caitlin for making sure the cabanas ran smooth and were fun. Yes, a special shout out, especially since we learned in late January that the cabanas were under construction. So that was required some shifting around. But that's kind of classic Miami. In Miami, nothing is as expected. And there's always changes in Miami. Coffee tumblers for folks to store for later. Okay. We'll take that under consideration. We did a mug. We have never done like a tumbler with the top. So that's a possibility. Siemens alone could probably pay for all the coffee and breakfast. That's true. And that's one of the things that we struggle with. So let me talk a little bit about sponsors. I thought this year the sponsors really stepped up. The POC Pavilion, we have had such problems. The Tom Van Norman at the ICS Village could tell you a lot about this. Like when we had the Vulnerability Management Pavilion, everyone was supposed to connect to the ICS Village and do a vulnerability management report, and we could compare apples to apples. I think 2 of the 10 did. So we almost gave up on that sort of thing. And we don't just like having an exhibit floor where they can do canned demos because I just don't think that is right for the S4 audience. But we said the only way you can be in the POC Pavilion is you have to do something on the Booz Allen system, on the automotive ICS that we brought, and you have to demo it live. And they all did. So they all stepped up. I thought the Prime Room people stepped up. They had a lot of good content in their sessions. So we like that. I was less personally, they did fine. So they did nothing wrong, but I'm still not a fan of, we had the welcome party sponsors, just basically 10 by 15 exhibits right outside the main stage. I don't like that. So I don't think we'll be doing that again. But that was nothing they did wrong. But this idea of just, here's a vendor booth that you can walk up and see the same thing you see at every other event. I'm just not a big fan of that. But I thought the sponsors did really great this year. But again, we want to make sure this is not a sponsor event. So essentially what we do is this is an event that we build for the attendees. And then if we get the right attendees there, then the sponsors will come. But I will tell you, it's very rare for an event in any tech industry, if you were to say, what's the split between revenue from tickets and revenue from sponsors? A 50-50 split is very rare, and we're actually 60-40 tickets to sponsors. Favorite new startup company at S4? You know, people got mad at me for shouting out companies, even though I don't think I said that you should look at this company. So I'm not going to answer that question. But one of the things that I'm surprised at, I'm going to talk a little bit with Rob about this, is we really have not seen another successful product segment outside of the detection asset inventory segment, which kind of surprises me. Let's see. Thank you. You're welcome. The presentations, I really hope that we really like to get new people on stage. So we have this policy that says if you presented 1 year, like if you presented at 26, it's going to be really hard for you to present at 27, because we don't want the same people on stage year after year after year. Now, some people put such great content in front of us that we can't say no to it. So it's not a never violate rule, but it is our approach to try to get new people on stage, and I'd encourage you to do that. But one of the things that I think surprises people, at least they tell me this, is when you submit to S4, first of all, we give you a lot of guidance. And then when you submit your draft presentation, the review is pretty tough, because I think most people don't do a great job putting together their first draft presentation. They spend so much time on background information that they don't really dive into the key points. So for better or worse, we provide a lot of feedback, and thanks to all the speakers for putting up with it. I hope it helps their presentations be better, but we want you to shine on that stage, and we really want your big idea or your great research to have impact. So that's our goal. Is we accept your session because we think there's a great idea for the advanced OT security community, and we want you to take full advantage of this time in front of 1,000 of the world's best to shine. Let me look. What do we have here? Maybe adding EPRI, ICS Village, or DOE Lab with BAH to add another control system environment to the POC Pavilion adds value. This is a good point. I think that's Brian. One of the things that we ran into with, I asked Kyle with Booz Allen, I said, if we had the space, could you have had more vendors on the system? And he said, no. He said 8 was really tough. They were already, had to be really careful for them not stepping on each other. So if we were going to make it larger, it would either need to be a larger system, or, Brian, as you suggest, it could be 2 different systems. And maybe you do your one company does their POC on one system and another on the other system, or something like that, especially if they were similar type solutions. So we will be looking at that, but it's kind of a big commitment by the person running it. So we'll have to see. Like, I haven't talked with Booz Allen officially as to whether they want to do this again, whether there's other people that want to do it. It was man months. I asked Kyle on stage, I said, how much time was this? And he said it was over 2 man months. Personally, I don't think that's even accurate, because I was on so many calls where they had 4 people on the call that my guess it was closer to 4 to 6 man months by Booz Allen to be the provider. And they really stepped up, because if they didn't do a good job, that thing would have been a shit show. Here's one of the guys who used to always break the rule. I give him a hard time now. Chris, next year my AI will submit a talk. Chris, I think, holds a record in the teens. I think he talked like 5 or 6 years in a row. It drove me crazy, but every year he'd send me something that I couldn't say no to. So, Chris, I'm looking forward to seeing you back on stage again. But, the problem with us older guys, Chris, is that we're not as technical, so you might need to shoot for the main stage rather than stage 2, but we'll see. Have your AI work on it and send me something. Okay, so I think that's going to, excuse me. I think that's going to be it. If there is anything else, you can send us questions or comments, either here in the LinkedIn or YouTube feed, and I'll take a look at those, or you can send emails to info@s4xevents.com. And just one final thank you for everyone that attended S4. with a great spirit this year, especially thanks to our speakers, to our sponsors, and to Liz and Caitlin and the team. I thank them so much offline, but I appreciate the person who mentioned it online here. They really do a tremendous job, and I also think that part of it is their team also is what leads to that kind of very friendly family spirit that you feel at S4. So take care, everyone, and I will talk to you soon.